In this video, you can learn how to get beautiful visualizations like this one or this one and understand what is behind this visualization by clicking on more details, more visualizations like heat maps, building comprehensive reports and also getting improving suggestions like here, cleaning data frame with single line of code by dropping columns, duplicate rows and missing values, cleaning and validating different data types like emails, countries, IP addresses and so on, building word clouds for each column and getting plenty of information for different types. Hi guys, today we will see how to speed up data analysis with best Python libraries for EDA or exploratory data analysis. At the end we will know how to get insights and build reports with few lines of code. You can find libraries in the table, where you can find GitHub stats like stars and contributors. You can check the article to get links to the notebook or quick overview for each library. You have Google Colab link, and also you can find quick summary for each library with nice animation. So let's the fun begin. To start, we will import few datasets. For better learning, I recommend to work in parallel using Google Colab. Let's start with open source libraries SweetViz. You can find description and how to install it in this cell here, also in the article. In order to get a report, we need to use analyse method and provide data frame as input, and then using show HTML to get the report. A new HTML tab will be open and you can use this report later. First we can see summary for this data, how many rows and duplicates we have, memory usage, and what are the types. We can find 7 categorical, 2 numerical, and the other is text. So you can get different information depend on the type, and also you can find association for the columns. There is summary and what is used to build this graph here. Let's check different types. For example, for text columns we can see the frequency and are there any missing values and what is the number of the unique ones. For record health we can see only one value, so we can drop this column. For numerical we can see that we have most frequent values, the smallest and the largest one. Also some associations with the other columns. Let's check categorical column. Then we can see the top categories and also what are the relations with the other ones. And that's all for this library. Next one is AutoViz. As the name suggests, it will automatically visualize datasets. As difference to the first one, it will take file as an input and you need to provide separator. And also it's a bit slower than previous one. Reports are generated using Bokeh as Jupyter outputs. First we can see summary, number of uniques, missing and types. These libraries are not perfect, and as we saw in previous video, prep and cook time can be converted to numerical, and they are recognized as a string here. Which is great for this library is that we have data cleaning improvement suggestions, which is great for beginners. For example, we can see that we have suggestions to drop this column because we have only one value. We can combine some columns, few missing, and so on. We have different plots depending on the type. For example, distribution plot, box plot, probability plot. We can find useful information here, searching for outliers, heat maps. Then we can see bar plots for continuous data. And finally we can see word clouds for text columns. And that's all for this library. Pandas-profiling is the most popular and most used library according to GitHub. It has big list of features and is very fast. There are 7 tabs in the final report, which can be generated by using profile report, providing the data frame, and then we can see the tabs here. The first tab is Overview, which has information about the dataset, number of rows and columns, missing values and duplicates. We can see the memory used and also the types for this dataset. We can see alerts like constant values, correlations, missing ones, and also unique values. Finally, we can see information about this analysis, how much time took and when was done. Next, we can see variables. Depending on the type, we can see different information. For most of them, we can see distinct and missing ones and how much memory it takes according to this library. Then we can get more information by using this button here, toggle details. For text columns, we can see length, then characters and uniqueness, plus some samples. We can see on the tab categories information about the different categories and how they are plotted with some frequency. We can see words, which are most common. Finally, we can see characters. We have most common characters. We can see different categories like lowercase, line breaks, and so on. Then we can see some language probability, which characters are used, like Latin, Devanagari and Greek, and most common symbols for them. And finally we can see some blocks like punctuation and their frequency. Next we can see that for URL column, again we have very useful information by using toggle. We can see frequency for the schema, netlog, queries and path, which is pretty useful when you're analyzing URLs. Then we can see that columns which are having constant values are faded. For numerical columns, we can see very useful information by getting more details, like summary statistic, percentile, minimum, maximum, what is the range. We can see descriptive statistics, we can see histogram, most common values, and some extreme values, which could be outliers. And that's all for this tab variables. On interactions, we can see different interaction between numerical columns. For example, in this dataset we have 2 vote count and rating, and we can see that for rating, which is between 475 and 5, this is the most common value, and we have vote count between 0 and 2000. Next we can see correlations. We have different ways to get correlations, and you can find more information for each of them by clicking descriptions. We can see Pearson, Kendall, Kramers and Fick. And this is pretty useful when you want to learn more about each of them and get information for correlations. For missing value is the same. We can get missing values by different ways. The first one is by using simple count. You can see the number of the total values, and for some columns we have missing ones. Below each graph we can see some description. Next one is matrix. You can see that white represents missing values, and we have missing values only in few columns. We can use also a heat map, which is pretty useful in some cases, or dendrogram. And the final tab for this library is sample, where we can see samples from the top and the bottom of this dataset. And that's all for this library. DataPrep is advertised as the easiest way to prepare data in Python. Some functionalities of DataPrep are inspired by pandas profiling, which we saw earlier. DataPrep generates beautiful profile report from function createReport and also works with pandas and Dask data frame. Advantages of this library are it's very fast due to highly optimized Dask-based computing module, supports big data, and also has more than 140 functions designed for cleaning and validating data, like clean country, validate country, plot correlations, plot missing. In order to get report, we need to use create report, passing data frame, and then show browser to get the report in a new tab. This is the final report. We have several tabs which are similar to pandas profiling. The first tab, overview, is split in two parts. We can see dataset statistics and dataset insights. We saw something similar for pandas profiling. Next one is variable. We can change the order of the variables. We can reverse the order and again see different information depending on the type. We can see more details by clicking show details. For example, pie chart, word cloud, frequency, word length, and so on. For numerical columns, we can see different information. Again, we can see zeros and negatives. We can see some plots where we can find different information. Do we have some trends, relations, outliers, and so on. Next one is about interactions. We can find what are the interactions for different columns. In this case, we have only two numerical, that's why we have only them. Next, we have correlations. For this library, we have only 3 of them. And you can see what are the correlations between numeric columns. For missing values, we have 4 different ways to get this representation of missing values: bar chart, spectrum, heat map, and dendrogram. And that's all for this library. Dabl focuses less on statistical measures of individual columns and more on providing a quick overview by visualizations as well as convenient pre-processing. It's actively developed and not recommended for production. The goal of dabl is to provide handy tool for beginners which build machine learning models. In order to use it, we need to provide data frame and target column. Then we can see suggestion, what is this column. Next we can see the frequency. Here we can see that most of the values are close to 0, so most probably we have outliers for this column. Then we can see the target column against continuous features, for example vote count and revenue, or vote count and runtime. Next we can see categorical columns against our target. And that's all for dabl. dtale combines Flask backend and React frontend to bring an easy way to view and analyze pandas data structures. It's interactive and works on Jupyter Notebook and Jupyter Lab. Currently supports objects like dataframe, series, multi-index, and more. In order to use it, we need to provide dataframe to method show. In this case, we are using movies dataset. Then we can show the menu by going on the top of this output, and we can open the tool in new tab. Right now we can show the menu and analyze the correlations between different columns. You can see that we have some errors which are frequent for this tool. Then we can see the missing values. We will get different options like heat map, bar, dendrogram, matrix, and so on. We can see predictive power score. Also we can visualize heat maps and different types of columns, or we can do some charts from multiple different charts. Then we can select columns, aggregation type, and many different options. Sometimes you will get error depending on what you are trying to do, but this tool is really nice and it's a quick way to get some insights from your data. The last one is klib, which is a library for importing, cleaning, analyzing and pre-processing data. Functions are divided in two areas, as we can see: describe and clean. Let's cover some of them. We'll start with plotting missing values. Darker lines represent missing values, and you can see the percentage of missing values for them. For example, columns homepage and tagline have a lot of missing values. Then we can see how to clean data with klib. We can use data cleaning and provide a data frame. We can see that 70 rows were cleaned. We can see the index of those rows. One column was dropped due to one single value, and we can drop also missing values by using this method. Finally, we can see what is the memory reduced. Next, we can see that we can plot correlations by using this library. For example, we can plot correlations for the whole data frame, and we can see strong correlation between vote count and revenue. Then we can plot correlation for a single column, for example revenue, and we can see the same picture here. Then we can use distribution plot for this data frame. You need to notice that there is some limitation and only 10,000 random samples are taken for these plots, but the summary statistics is for the entire data set. This is very useful when you need to work with numeric data, and in this example we can see the distribution and what are the mean, standard deviation and so on. Finally, we can see the correlation matrix for this data frame, and there are many other functions which might be useful for you. This was all for this library. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new today. I just want to announce that we released new pandas cheat sheet for data cleaning. You can find it on the website by hovering on this cheat sheet button. If you have some suggestions, please do share them in the comment section below. Thank you and see you next time.